A former soldier hauls vaccines to save kids, but bikers surround her, and her dogs strike back. Before we dive into this story, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. It's always awesome to see how far our stories are reaching. Behind the wheel was Sarah Bennett, a woman with a steely gaze, a firm jaw, and a faint scar above her left eyebrow. She was tall, with fair skin like polished marble, her blonde hair tucked under a faded black military cap, worn by time. She wasn't just any truck driver. Sarah was a forgotten legend of the Northern Alliance Rescue Forces, a specialist in war logistics and tactical dog training. After a failed mission 4 years ago, she left the barracks and vanished into the anonymity of the open road. But tonight, she was back in action. Beside her in the reinforced cab rode her most loyal companions, Max and Duke, 2 German shepherds with dark fur and sharp, intelligent eyes. Both wore tactical harnesses, equipped with sensors and first aid compartments. Max, younger and agile, stayed alert, watching for the slightest movement. Duke, stockier and a seasoned veteran, rested with one eye open and the other lost in dreams of war. "Easy, boys," Sarah whispered, her eyes fixed on the road. "Just a few more hours and we'll be at the clinic in New Haven." The dashboard lights glowed a dim red. The cargo, secured with multiple electronic seals, carried experimental vaccines against a deadly fever sweeping through towns across southern Brightfield. Sarah couldn't fail. She knew that on the other side of this delivery, children were waiting for a second chance. As the engine roared steadily, Sarah recalled the call from retired Commander Margaret Hayes, who had asked her for this personal favor. "Only you can do this, Sarah. I don't trust anyone else. And them, the dogs, they still follow you. Don't tell me you don't miss having a purpose." She hadn't answered. She just hung up, packed her gear, and started the truck. The past always finds a way to catch up. A shadow darted across the highway. Max growled. Sarah slowed down instinctively. What was that? She flipped on the high beams. Nothing. Just dust floating in the warm breeze. But her instincts didn't lie. Something was watching from the darkness. In the distance, motorcycle lights began to flicker. At first, there were 2, then 4, then a dozen. They flanked the truck, circling like hungry wolves around prey. "So it's true," Sarah muttered grimly. "They didn't come for the vaccines. They came for you." Max stood up. Duke rose slowly, his tail swaying with a mix of calm and lethal readiness. Both knew what was coming. "Stay sharp. I don't want injuries unless we have to," Sarah said, adjusting the rearview mirror to track the enemy formation. The radio crackled with strange interference. A distorted voice cut through the metallic noise. "Hand over the canine assets. That's all we want." Sarah gripped the wheel tightly. Her heart pounded with a rhythm she hadn't felt since the Torrance conflict. "Over my dead body." She slammed the accelerator. The engine's roar exploded across the highway, and the motorcycle convoy began its deadly dance. But they didn't yet know what Sarah and her dogs were capable of. The roar of motorcycles shattered the quiet of the desert night like a pack of hellhounds. They surrounded Sarah's truck in a tight, menacing formation. Some riders surged ahead. Others banged chains against the truck's side doors, creating a metallic clang that echoed like funeral bells. Sarah, hands steady on the wheel, didn't blink. Her eyes locked on the horizon, where the lights of Highway 17 marked the final stretch before the mountain pass. She knew if she could reach it, she could trigger the next phase of her plan. Max, in the passenger seat, stayed fully alert. His ears perked, jaw slightly open to show his fangs, and his bright eyes scanned every figure that drew near. Duke, bulkier, took position at the back of the cab, guarding the cargo as if he understood its importance. "Max, alpha mode," Sarah said, her voice calm but firm. The dog turned his head and pressed a small button on his harness with his nose. Instantly, hidden strobe lights on the truck's chassis flashed on, a burst of white and blue that blinded the bikers for a few seconds. 3 lost control and crashed into the ditch. "Move, move!" shouted one of the leaders, wearing a black helmet with a mirrored visor as he sped up to match the truck's pace. From the window, Sarah studied him. His voice and posture told her immediately it was Derek Holt, the leader of the Steel Riders, a former operative who vanished after a botched mission in Eastern Europe. Now he'd resurfaced as a mercenary. "Sarah Bennett," he said mockingly through a speaker on his helmet. "What an honor to find you here. Always the noble one, risking everything for a lost cause." She didn't reply. She just held his gaze for a second before activating the next defense, a tactical smoke system that spewed thick fog from the truck's rear, clouding the biker's view. Duke barked loudly from his post, warning the intruders he wouldn't back down. One biker managed to hook onto the truck's side. A man in a skull mask started climbing. Max reacted with near superhuman speed. He lunged through the side window, biting the man's forearm and sending him crashing onto the asphalt. Sarah swerved sharply, dodging a fake obstacle in the road, a line of spikes and barricades. Derek kept pace like a relentless shadow. "How much are they paying you for them?" Sarah shouted, breaking her silence for the first time. "It's not about money," Derek shot back, accelerating. "It's about what's inside them. Those dogs are the key to controlling the future. You don't get it yet." His voice wasn't greedy, it was obsessed. That unnerved her. Sarah knew she couldn't hold out much longer without a better strategy. She grabbed the intercom mic and switched to a private frequency. "Code 46A, activate smoke relay protocol." A gruff voice answered from the other end. "Got it, we're waiting at the breakpoint." Far ahead, yellow lights flickered as two more trucks emerged from a side road. They were her old squad, retired comrades who'd answered her emergency call. The convoy aligned. The three trucks turned in unison, blocking the highway like a moving steel wall. Confusion hit the bikers instantly. Two more crashed trying to brake. Chaos reigned for seconds. Enough time. Sarah veered onto a hidden right turn, heading for the maintenance tunnels of the Holland River Dam. Only Max and Duke knew what was coming. Dust rose like a final curtain. Derek slammed on his brakes, furious, watching Sarah's truck vanish into the shadows of the secret path. "You won't escape, Sarah." "Not with them," he muttered, his eyes burning with a mix of rage and hunger. Inside the truck, Sarah stroked Max's head. "Good boy, you nailed it. But it's just the start." The tunnel Sarah drove into twisted beneath the Holland River Dam like a forgotten artery. Moss coated the walls, the ceiling leaked in spots, and the radio signal was a faint, crackling hum. To Sarah, though, this place was more than an escape route. It was a buried memory, a relic of her old life. Max trotted beside her, never straying. His breathing was steady, but his eyes darted from corner to corner, sensing an invisible threat. Sarah switched on a small shoulder-mounted flashlight and pressed forward, keeping pace. She stopped the truck in a wide section of the tunnel, an old Cold War-era underground service station. She remembered it well. Years ago, she'd trained Max and Duke here for urban combat scenarios. It was also where she lost her first squad. An ambush, an explosion, then silence. Sarah petted Max's back gently while checking him for injuries from the earlier chase. "You're okay, right, boy? I can't lose you too." Max licked her hand softly, as if to say, "I'm with you, till the end." While Duke rested, hooked to a makeshift medical unit and still recovering from the first ambush, Sarah opened the truck's rear compartment and pulled out a security case. Inside were classified Canine Research Command documents and a small coin-sized metal disc. She held it up to the light. "So this is what they're after." That chip, implanted in Max years ago, didn't just hold secret military coordinates. It was a genetic key. Max wasn't an ordinary dog. His DNA had been altered to interface with military AI systems. He could activate satellites, unlock secure servers, even detect human emotions through brainwave pulses. It was experimental tech, never meant to leave the lab. Sarah shivered. She'd sworn to protect that intel with her life, and now she understood why Derek was so desperate. If Max fell into the wrong hands, they wouldn't just lose a dog. They'd lose control of the continent's military balance. She sat on the ground beside her partner. Max rested his head on her leg and closed his eyes for a moment. "Remember James?" she whispered, like talking to an old friend. "He trained you too, and he was the one who vanished with the blueprints for this." The radio beeped. A clear, familiar, icy voice came through the speaker. "Sarah, I know you're listening. Don't hide in the ghosts. Talk to me." Sarah's face paled. That wasn't Derek. It was Emily, her older sister, now deputy director of the Brightfield Strategic Intelligence Agency. "No way," she murmured. Max stiffened at the name, his instincts taut like a spring. "I know about the chip. I know about the dogs. And I know what happened in Torrance. Not all of it was your fault, but don't shut me out this time, Sarah." Sarah clenched her teeth, remembering how Emily had betrayed the squad by leaking locations to mercenaries. She was cleared for lack of evidence, but the wound never healed. "I don't trust you, Emily. And you don't trust me, don't talk to me about guilt. I'm not here to argue. I just want you to come out of this alive. There are things Derek doesn't know yet, but I do. I need to see you, I need to help you. Silence. Sarah lowered the radio. Help me? After selling me out? She looked at Max. He stared back, as if he understood every word. Maybe, deep in that trained, modified mind, he did. Come on, partner. If she knows what I think she does, we'll have to meet her, but on our terms. She started the truck again and exited the tunnel through a side route, heading for the old Westwood airfield, where years ago they'd trained under Emily's watch. The storm was just beginning. The makeshift convoy, a single reinforced truck, an old tactical jeep, and a stealth drone circling far overhead, wound through the rugged trails of the Vale Mountains. The peaks cast black silhouettes under a full moon, and the silence was so thick even the engines seemed to hold their breath. Sarah drove with fierce focus, her hands steady on the wheel, eyes glued to a screen showing the drone's feed of possible lookout points. Beside her, Max sat upright, ears forward, sensing something beyond the sensors. Duke, still limping slightly, held the back of the vehicle. His gaze showed no weakness. He'd reclaimed his guardian spirit. How many entrances does the complex have? Sarah asked quietly, glancing at Emily, who studied a holographic map projected over the glove box. 3 ground entrances, 1 underground, but that one was sealed months ago after a tech revolt. James might be in the central lab or the medical wing if his reports are accurate. And how many modified dogs do they have? Emily swallowed hard before answering. 12. 4 for attack, the rest for tracking. Genetically altered to ignore human pheromones and focus on electrical impulses. They can track your gear or your dental implant. Sarah turned to Max. He met her gaze, as if he already knew this would be his biggest challenge. We won't give up, she whispered to him. Not this time. 3 miles out, perimeter lights snapped on. Heat sensor turrets, sweeping spotlights, and a steady hum of electromagnetic interference. The moment had come. Duke, right flank. Max, on my signal, Sarah ordered, stepping out of the truck with flawless agility. Both German shepherds moved instantly. Max vanished into the brush, a shadow in motion, while Duke took position among the rocks, awaiting orders. Emily stayed in the jeep, coordinating from a portable panel. We're in radar range. If you don't cross in the next 8 minutes, they'll spot us, she announced. Sarah crept toward the electric fence around the auxiliary entrance. Using a magnetic clip, she disabled the field temporarily and slipped inside. Max crossed first. A guard appeared in the corridor, but before he could make a sound, Max leaped from the shadows, pinning him against the wall with surgical force. No need to hurt him, the man passed out. Good boy, Sarah murmured, giving him a pat. The facility was cold and sterile, with white hallways lit by flickering lights. Monitors flashed alerts, and an eerie emptiness hung in the air as if every corner hid a camera or mic. A metallic clank echoed from afar. Sarah froze. Duke tensed. Max stepped forward, sniffing the air. What emerged from the hallway was chilling. A black dog with artificial eyes, sensors embedded in its back, and metal plates on its legs. It was a modified canine, but this one had no soul, just programming. The fight was unavoidable. Max lunged first, dodging a robotic bite. Duke charged from the side, knocking the synthetic beast against the wall. Sarah fired a tranquilizer dart, but a dispersion field deflected it. The enemy dog stood again, and for a moment, Sarah thought they wouldn't make it. But Max did something unexpected. He stepped in front of the hostile canine and emitted a high-pitched frequency from his implant. The artificial dog faltered, its body shook, and it collapsed without a sound. Max, you knew, Sarah said, stunned. Emily's voice crackled through the comms. It's the mirror protocol, James built it in. Max is the only one who can disable the modified dogs. He's the key to saving them or stopping them. A door opened at the end of the hall. There, standing with a scruffy beard, grey lab coat and a broken gaze, was James Carter. I knew you'd come. Sarah felt the world shrink. She'd spent a lifetime imagining this moment. Now, face to face, all she could do was take a step toward him and breathe. Max sat between them, as if he knew his mission was complete. Duke approached calmly, wounded but proud. We've been waiting for you, James said, his voice cracking, but we don't have much time. The underground facility stretched like a maze beneath the Vale Mountains. Lights flickered with a sickly pulse, casting pale glints on damp, dusty metal walls. With every step, Sarah felt the weight of her past pressing down. James walked beside her, limping slightly on his right leg from years of captivity and forced work. His blue eyes were dim, but not defeated. Max stayed glued to Sarah, alert to every corner, every shadow. Duke, his legs still bandaged, trailed a few steps behind, panting with effort but never complaining. They weren't just dogs, they were soldiers. Family. "How far have they gotten with the core?" Sarah asked, not looking at James. "It's ready. Derek only needs Max to sync it with the Alpha network. With that, he could activate any autonomous defense system on the continent, even the dormant arsenals in North Vale." "And you helped him?" James stopped. He looked down. "No, but I didn't stop him either. I had no choice. I was wearing an explosive collar, and they used a kid, a test volunteer, as leverage. If I refused, he'd die." Sarah closed her eyes for a moment. She couldn't judge him. In war, choices were never black or white, just grey, very dark grey. They reached a circular room lined with servers. In the center, a metallic capsule sat in a clear stand. The core, it pulsed faintly, like it was alive. "How does it activate?" Sarah asked bluntly. "Max has to stand here. His neural frequency unlocks the gate. The code in his implant does the rest, but also what? It links to his nervous system. If the process is interrupted, Max could suffer a permanent collapse." Sarah stepped back. Her breathing quickened. She looked at her partner. Max approached the capsule on his own. He sat in front of it and let out a soft whine, as if he knew what was at stake. "No, I won't allow it," Sarah said firmly. "There's no other way," James replied. "If we destroy the core now, Derek will blow the facility. But if Max activates it, we can reconfigure it and lock the network for good." Duke barked once. Max turned to him. It was like a silent farewell. "He'll do it," Emily murmured, appearing from a side entrance. "Max isn't afraid of sacrifice. He's more human than most of us." Sarah didn't answer. She knelt in front of Max, pressing her forehead to his. "If you make it through, I promise I'll take you home. Green fields, no bullets, no orders, just you and me, running free." Max looked at her one last time, then walked to the capsule and stepped onto the platform. The system powered up. Soft alarms beeped. Lights flashed red. "Synchronization initiated," a robotic voice announced. Then an explosion rocked the structure. Walls shook. The system glitched. The capsule trembled. From the shadows, Derek emerged, armed with an automatic rifle and a gas mask covering his face. "You thought you could trick me that easily," he roared. "Max is mine, and so is the core." Emily drew her pistol, but wasn't fast enough. Derek shot her in the shoulder. She fell, groaning. Sarah grabbed her gun, but Derek aimed at Max. "One shot and I destroy everything you love," he warned. But something happened. Max began emitting a high-pitched hum from his chest. His implant glowed brighter than ever. His body lifted a few inches. The core vibrated violently. "What's he doing?" James asked, stunned. "He's activating the autonomous phase," Sarah whispered. "He's taking control." Max locked eyes with Derek. His gaze had changed. He wasn't just a trained dog anymore. He was something more. A sudden energy pulse shot from the capsule. Derek's rifle was ripped from his hands. Screens shattered. Systems crashed. In a final move, Max leaped from the platform and shoved Derek into an electrical panel. Sparks, screams, darkness. When the emergency lights flickered on, Derek lay unconscious on the floor. Max panted, still standing, but his body shook. He collapsed at Sarah's feet. "Max!" she cried, dropping to her knees. James checked his vitals. "He's alive, but the implant's fried. He needs rest, now." Sarah hugged him tightly. The core was now just an inert shell. The threat was over. "You did it, partner. You saved us all." Duke limped over and lay beside Max, resting his head on him. Emily, bleeding but awake, smiled from the floor. "That dog, he's a legend." Sarah, tears in her eyes, didn't respond. She just stroked her hero's fur and looked at the bunker's ceiling. Outside, it started to rain. A week after the Vale Mountains incident, the world kept turning, but nothing was the same. Fort Darrow's military hospital had been turned into a high-security recovery center. No press allowed, no official statements, and the few who knew the truth stayed silent. In room 207, Max lay on a wide stretcher, hooked to monitors tracking every vital sign. His body was stable, but his implant was irreversibly damaged. Doctors didn't dare remove it. Too risky. Sarah sat by his side every day, no exceptions. She wore civilian clothes, but her posture was still that of a soldier. Straight, firm, hands clasped, eyes fixed on her partner. Duke lay at her feet, dozing but opening his eyes whenever someone entered. "Do you think he'll run again?" Sarah asked Duke softly. "That we'll feel the wind in our faces someday, without this weight?" Max, as if he understood, twitched an ear. James appeared at the door quietly. He still wore a brace on his arm from the fight, but looked stronger than when they'd rescued him. "You've been here since dawn, haven't you?" he asked. "I'm not leaving," Sarah replied, not looking away from Max. "He wouldn't leave me." James approached slowly. He set an envelope on the nightstand. Inside were official papers, the shutdown of the Alpha Wolf project, the cancellation of its patents, the dissolution of the development team. "It's done. The cause dismantled. Derek will face a war crimes trial in an international military court, and Max, they've named him a national hero. That won't save him," Sarah said, her voice choked. James looked at her gently. He didn't need words to show what he felt. Guilt, the weight of choices made for science, and the shadow of what could have been, all reflected in his eyes. "But it might save you," he added. "Don't carry this alone." Sarah nodded, silent. Later, Emily arrived, her arm still bandaged. She'd traded her uniform for plain clothes, more subdued. She wasn't here with authority. She was here as a sister. "I have to head back to Brightfield," she said, "but I wanted to say goodbye." Sarah stood from her chair. She looked at her sister hard at first, but the hardness melted. Slowly, she hugged her. "I don't fully forgive you, but thank you for coming back." Emily held her tightly. "I'm trying to fix what I broke." When she left, Duke raised his head. He nudged Sarah's hand with his nose. "I know," she whispered. "Max needs me strong." Just then, Max let out a soft whimper. The monitors beeped gently. He opened his eyes. Sarah rushed to him, holding back tears. "You're here. You made it." Max wagged his tail weakly. He couldn't stand, but he was awake. He was back. Duke barked once. James smiled. "Welcome back, boy." Sarah petted him gently. "Rest. When you're ready, we'll go home." Outside, the sun peeked through the clouds. The storm had passed. For the first time in a long while, Sarah felt that maybe there'd be peace. 3 months later, the fields of Brightfield stretched like a green ocean under an open sky. Gentle hills covered in grass and wildflowers replaced the war-torn roads. The roar of engines and echoes of explosions were now just memories. The land, at last, could breathe. At a modest but sturdy farmhouse, Sarah leaned on a wooden fence, watching the horizon in silence. She wore a rolled-up white shirt, worn jeans, and leather boots. Her face, once etched with constant tension, now held a calm that felt foreign, but earned. A few yards away, Max ran with renewed energy. His black and tan fur gleamed in the sun. Tell me in the comments, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate this story so far? Your opinion means a lot to me. He still wore a modified harness, but it was no longer linked to military systems, just a tracker and a nameplate like any loved dog. Duke, slower but just as determined, walked beside him. He'd lost some agility, but not his spirit. They played, barked softly, their movements marking their greatest victory, being alive. "Max, come back," Sarah called with a smile. "No more missions, remember? Just grass and freedom." Max stopped, looked at her with his clear, intelligent eyes, and trotted back. He let her pet him, leaning against her legs like a kid seeking the warmth of home. On the porch, James read a sci-fi book, wearing round glasses and a blanket over his legs. He wasn't old, but life had aged him early. Still, his presence was warm. He'd chosen to stay, not as a scientist or a fugitive, just as a man and as family. "He's settled in well," he said, closing the book. "Better than I expected," Sarah replied. "Duke, too. I think they miss this kind of life. The quiet, the sun, not looking over their shoulders." "You missed it too," James noted. Sarah nodded without saying more. She grabbed a rubber ball and tossed it into the field. Max chased it like a bolt, with Duke following as best he could. A white pickup rolled up the dirt road. Emily stepped out in simple clothes, her hair in a braid. She carried a vet toolkit and a folder under her arm. "I'm not here as an official," she said before Sarah could speak. "Just wanted to check on the hero." "He's doing better than all of us," Sarah said, pointing to Max. "And he refuses to retire." Emily smiled, knelt beside Max, and checked him carefully. The implants encapsulated, no reaction. His brain adapted. "The crazy thing is, he's more stable now than during his whole military career." "Maybe that's it," James said from the porch. "Maybe Max needed to shed the weight of being a weapon to finally be what he always was, a protector." Sarah petted Max's head and looked at the sky. "I'm thinking of starting a rehab center for war dogs. There are so many like them, abandoned, broken, forgotten. Maybe we can give them what Max gave me." "I'm in," Emily said. "Me too," James added. Sarah smiled, a full smile for the first time. No more anger, no revenge, just purpose. At dusk, the three sat on the porch. Max and Duke lay nearby, resting. The sky burned in shades of orange and purple. A breeze rustled the leaves with a whisper of hope. "Think there'll be more battles?" James asked, breaking the quiet. "There always are," Sarah replied. "But this time, we won't go alone." Max lifted his head, as if he knew his story wasn't over, just taking a new shape. Under that vast sky, in a corner where war had given way, Sarah and her dogs found something stronger than any weapon: peace. 2 years have passed since Derek's fall and the final shutdown of the Canine Corps. The world hasn't stopped spinning with its wars, shady politics, and buried secrets, but it's quietly changed because of one fact. A German shepherd named Max chose to protect, not obey. The Open Horizon Sanctuary is now a global benchmark. Set on a renovated ranch in the valleys of Brightfield, it houses over 60 retired military dogs, each with a story scarred by the roar of explosions, harsh commands, and sleepless nights. Now they run among fruit trees, swim in small lakes, and train puppies for something new, living with dignity. Sarah runs it all with strength and compassion. Her routine has changed, but her core remains: disciplined, protective, tireless. Beside her, James handles the tech side, redesigning less invasive implants focused on healing, not control. He also teaches young trainers. His love for Sarah isn't declared in grand words, but built in a quiet pact, forged through days of work and nights of shared silence. Emily, after testifying publicly against top agency officials, left the service for good. She now runs an NGO overseeing ethical canine training programs. Her bond with Sarah is still delicate but honest. They see each other often. They respect each other. And for the first time in decades, they understand each other. Duke is the sanctuary's official mascot. He no longer joins intense training, but he's the first to bark at anything odd. His leg never fully healed, but he wears his scar with pride and loves napping under the porch on long summer afternoons. Max, though he doesn't run like he used to, still walks with authority. His implant remains inactive, encapsulated, but his eyes, they speak. He's become a symbol of resilience and hope. Kids visit, pet his fur, and hear the story of the dog who stopped a weapon with a brave bark. His name became legend, but he never cared. He just wants to be with Sarah, feeling the grass under his paws and the breeze on his snout. On a clear night, Sarah sits on an old wooden bench by the fence. Max lies beside her, his head on her lap. She strokes his ear and looks at the moon. "Remember that tunnel?" she murmurs. "I thought it'd all end there. But look, here we are." Max grumbles softly as if to say, "Yeah, but now we're free." While the world out there keeps racing, they stay under that quiet moon. Not as soldiers, not as weapons, but as souls saved. Thank you so much for sticking with this story until the end. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a ton and motivates us to keep bringing new stories every week. And since you're here, take a moment to check out another one of our stories that's popping up on your screen. Big hug and see you next time. Stay well.